updated policy, which I would first like to draw to all of your attention. This is a copy of the 1977 personnel policy, just to show in comparison to where we are now. I only use this, one, for some brief comic relief, but also I think what it does, and I can pass this around, is it just shows you what it's like to modernize a policy and how times have changed. And I do that because that's what these updates are. Is there a modernization of the policies? They're updating it to what we actually do here in the township, so it can be a usable document. And it also incorporates a number of suggestions from our insurance company. I'd like to draw to your attention, if the board will, just a couple specific areas. First off, I'd like to show you all the new handbook format. The new format of the personnel policy is meant to increase usability and make it a more friendly and understandable document with the understanding from a management perspective. If it's a usable document, everyone being able to read it and understand those policies, we will hopefully avoid some of those initial concerns or potential infractions. Second, I'd like to draw your attention to page 5. And on page 5, we have a new clause, and it highlights some other changes throughout that recognizes the difference and the distinction between elected officials and employees. That was a major concern with the previous personnel policy. It was unclear what policies applied to employees and what policies applied to elected officials. As you all as elected officials understand, there are definitely policies that do apply to all of you, but for the most part, you are all not employees, so a lot of these policies would not. This handbook does a better job at drawing those distinctions between those specific policies. I will also draw your attention to page 25, which is the social media policy. This is a great example of the modernization I talked about. Obviously, in 1977, social media was not going to be a topic of discussion in a personnel policy, but now it is standard and necessary, not only in terms of managing official township social media accounts, but also how employees, it offers recommendations and encouragement for how employees would act on their own personal social media. And then lastly, I would just like to say, in a lot of situations, personnel policies are administrative or operational, but there are also a lot of value-based decisions that are made in a personnel policy. Things like which holidays should be given, what benefits should be offered to employees. So that's why I think it's important to bring this policy up in front of all of you, look for comments, feedback, concerns. I'm not looking for any formal action to be taken today. I'm purely looking for feedback. The next step would be to then incorporate the feedback gathered today at this meeting. We'll then have legal counsel review the personnel policy, and then it will be brought back in front of you at a future meeting to either decide if you would wish to take action to adopt the personnel policy, if you would choose not to adopt the changes, or if you would like to continue to discuss and make additional amendments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I recognize it's a long document, so but I look for all of your feedback.
Thank you.
I'd like to really say thank you in a big way, because I know how much time this took, and as you know, some of this was a bone of contention when we first took office, so it's nice to see things cleaned up and follow the input we got from our insurance company and other sources, and I think you've done an incredible job. It's nice to see that things like gender identification have been added to this, and I applaud that. I know we're not necessarily making comments now. I just want to throw something out that we can discuss or vote on later. Relative to the holiday schedule, on telling Griffin the other day, I guess 'cause I was working in Washington DC back in the early '80s for a trade association, but that was the first year Martin Luther King Day was celebrated as a federal holiday, and I've had it off in every job I've had since then, in LA and New York, and even in Grand Rapids. I was in charge of the HR policy. I introduced it. So I would like to see us consider either adding the third Monday in January as a paid holiday in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, or if need be, discuss a trade with something else. But that's, I would really like to see that happen.
I would consider that that's probably a really valid holiday.
Grand Rapids does. There aren't a lot of West Michigan cities that do it, and that's kind of a shame, because the holiday became a federal holiday, I think, in 1981.
I don't even think there's school that day here, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Well, in Saugatuck, they don't, I know Hamilton.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, they don't? Oh, okay.
Oh, pretty certain. I know we work in Saugatuck City, but I think it's very valid. Okay, if we would take time, maybe over the next couple weeks, read it thoroughly and get back to Griffin with your feedback, comments, questions.
I'd just like to sound in that again, yes, this is great, Griffin. There's so much work that went into it, so comprehensive. It's, you've really covered every aspect. One thing that there was a couple things that, caught my attention, but I, want to look them over again, read it again, think about it a little bit more. But the one thing that I just want people to think about, and maybe it's a non-issue and it can't be an issue, but just to start the conversation, I think that some, quite a few organizations, I know when I worked for Family Court, they considered 36 hours full-time, or maybe even less. So I don't know what's the norm these days for benefits and such. And I know a lot, at least in my experience, there have been places that have considered less hours. So maybe, I don't know, just to start thinking about that or start that conversation.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think we should think about it. Because we did vote on the medical benefit hours, but that's one issue. And then maybe the other full-time one is, as you said, maybe it is 36 now. Do more research.
I think it's 36.
I think it's 30.
Yeah.
I think it's 32.
Yeah, I wonder.
I think, yeah.
In France, it's 22.
Okay, so everybody has their homework cut out for them on that one.
Yeah.
And then we did cover a little bit with Mary Wexford about House Bill 4046.
Yeah, that's why I was so excited she was coming, so we could bring that up, because I was just going to mention, I think you're all aware of that House bill.
Can I interject? I'm so sorry.
Did we miss?
We skipped the doors and locks.
Oh, we did.
Yes.
All right.
All right, go back to doors and locks. Mr. Graham will give us an update on the quotes that he got from the door and lock.
Let me see if I can put this up for everybody. So, over the last month as well, we have had several different contractors come in to look at a number of different maintenance items as associated with the township hall. We've brought in electricians, we've brought in air conditioner folks, but two of the largest issues that are before us have to do with our doors and locks. As many of you know, our back doors have significant water damage, as well as we have locks and many years of keys out in the public that we don't necessarily know where they have all been. They've not been tracked to the point that I think this board is looking to see them tracked. So we brought in Holland Lock and Safe to provide us with several different quotes to look at what it would cost to update and change the locks. There's 4 different quotes in front of you. the lowest cost one being at $397.45 is just a basic, lock core replacement and new keys. And then there are others including upgraded non-duplicate keys as well as, electric keypad options for aspects in the office. We also have these back doors quoted by J.A. Morman, a company out of Grand Rapids. They recently did some work for the city of Saugatuck. And I put these in front of you because until we have a purchasing policy in place, I'd like to formally ask for approval at a project at this price point. It's my understanding these would both be considered administrative and operational repairs, maintenance repairs in nature, so they would fall under the township manager's purview, but until we're able to clarify that in a purchasing policy in the upcoming months, I would like to put it before you to see how you all would like to proceed.
Any questions for Griff?
Yeah, on the 4 different lock proposed, estimates and proposals. I mean, not looking at the cost.
Sure.
Is there one that you prefer or would recommend?
Why we quoted 4 different options is because there's a variety of new technology that's available now that probably, my understanding, has not been considered for use in government offices in the past. The examples would be putting a lockbox out behind one of our doors. We currently have posted on our website that this space where we host our meetings is available for rent for the public. So an option that might be interesting is have I think they're called realtor boxes, is a common name for them, where we would give those individuals a code. They could type the code in, get the key, get in, and then return that key afterwards, and we could just change the code instead of constantly needing to track down keys. In my short tenure as the township manager, I have found that that's not a common use for this space, so investing the money for that product as it may be something we want to look at in the future, I don't know if it would actually provide much of a benefit for us right now.
But we do have, as you know, 3 or 4 regular users of this room that we don't charge for, condo associations and organizations. And, they have to come in the day before, then they come in the day after, and then they forget, or we forget, and,
What are they, John? Condo?
Condo association.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Some of them, I think some meet every month, some might be quarterly, but they go on the calendar, and as I said, Carol usually handles it,
So
but
if they were
Carol's
to
off,
come
and
in,
they
they can't go in the office, right? They're only allowed to the
No, that part's locked.
Correct.
So
And
they
so
have to-
we'd have to have
It's just the
One at a
logistics
time,
of
one at a time.
getting the key.
If I may,
I think the lockbox is a good idea.
and if I may, we currently have 2 types of doors here. We have external doors and what I call internal doors. External doors would be the keys that would be available in that lockbox. Those get you in these back doors, and then the very front door. We then have an internal front door and other back doors that would keep folks out of the office spaces, if that's an option we pursue. The other quote is for a touchpad access for the external doors. My professional opinion is we're not ready for that at this point. I do see the lockbox as a potential option, and that is partially why, at this point, until I can do a more thorough kind of operational analysis of what would be the most beneficial for us, the proposed motion I have in front of you on the staff memo is to authorize the township manager to proceed as not to exceed the budget amount for this project. That would allow staff to continue to look into these options as well as then proceed with getting the work done. But I do look for any feedback the board has.
Well, one thing I was concerned about is not those cheap, wonky little keys that they duplicate nowadays. You want a really nice key.
Even the keys we have are problematic.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're all.
Yeah.
So none of these are a touchpad. The push button combo is that lockbox?
So the push button combo combo gray wall mount, that's the touch box. The satin chrome
The lock box,
Century.
you mean?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
okay.
that's
That's
the
okay.
lock box. And then the satin chrome Century, that would be a touchpad.
What's the difference between the 780-49 and the 923 that just finishes?
No, the 923 has touchpad.
So no, they both have a level of a touchpad. One of them is fully automatic, one of them is still manual. It's the two most common ones that they quote, so that's why they provided those into us as a quote. I would like to say also that if we decide we want to go to a different combination of the options, these 4 quotes are not the only options we have. That's another reason why, if the board decides to authorize the manager to proceed with this project, we can make sure we get the best option for us as a township. Another option I'll give is all of these quotes are currently quoting at 20 keys, and I think we all understand that we don't necessarily need 20 keys. We're a small organization, especially if we proceed with the lockbox. So that would decrease the prices as well. I just wanted to put these in front of you so you had a ballpark estimate of what these projects look like. I would also like to draw your attention to the S.A. Mormon quote for the doors, because this is different. This would be the price we would move forward with.
So let me ask you in both cases. Typically, we've been required with this kind of work to get 3 bids. Have we done that yet, or would you be
We
willing
have
to
not,
do
because
that?
we don't have a personnel policy that outlines that as.
Well, we do, and we were,
The purchasing policy?
yeah, it was strictly enforced when we did the video cameras.
I think it was
We were
strongly
questioned a lot by the public on
sure,
that.
it was strongly suggested. I don't know if there was anything binding us to that.
I just went through the door replacement at Saugatuck City Hall, and I can't tell you how many different people we called, and they don't call you back, they don't want to do a job that small. This is the only door company that would come out, and it took us 6 months to get them to come out and do it. So, I don't think you're gonna get 3
You
quotes
can't
on
get
that.
doors anymore, they're just so busy that.
Well, no, and this is the more severe, I think, of the two, the doors.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm comfortable, I don't know if we need a motion, but I'm comfortable saying let's proceed with the S.A. Mormon for the door repair.
I am too.
We've had so
I
much
don't
rain,
think
and
we-
it's
yeah.
just
It's a
getting worse.
hazard.
We're
It
gonna have to
rains
get new
inside.
carpet because it was
Yeah.
neglected for so long.
Yep.
And then I think on the lock side,
Let
I,
Griffin decide.
I
okay,
think so.
or come back
I
to,
mean, that's
but
what
I
it's
would
for.
suggest you try to get some other bids, and we could approve up to $800 or something.
And then it can
The locks or the
Can you
doors?
clarify other bids?
Other vendors,
For the,
for the key and lock.
oh, we have though, haven't you checked with other ones? or-
Oh, I misunderstood that.
We could not get anyone else scheduled.
There you go.
All right.
For them.
Well, we,
This highlights the point of why it should be a priority for us to move forward with a purchasing policy. It is my understanding that we do not have a formally adopted
well, we were told we
policy
did, and we adapted
Well,
that
we
way.
Well, you know, we told.
Yeah.
All right, so there's, as we've done with personnel, we threw that one away and got a beautiful one.
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably already started
So-
getting in samples, so that's
What-
good.
And maybe you can just clarify this, but this is important to me. In thinking about just the security and not getting in the same situation where we've got keys everywhere, do you have an idea how you would track keys, or would they be non-duplicates, or, and then also, I guess, to me, the touchpad, and I hear you saying that we're not there, that's the attractive piece, is you can just change the code, change the code every 6 months, and that way, you just erase it
And
and
with
reset.
that, can you give the organizations, the outside organizations that use it, they're a different code?
That's my understanding.
Their own code.
And so why do you think we're not there?
It's expensive.
So there's two different
Right.
options I think we're combining into one.
Okay.
There's the touch code for the very front door. There's also the lock box in the back. That would be coded.
Right.
My understanding is we could set as many different codes as we would want for the lock box in the back,
For the other.
if that is something we would find beneficial.
Okay.
It's the touch code in the front
Mhm.
that my professional opinion is it's not worth $300 to put that in the front as opposed to put a traditional lock there. We can continue lock options, as the memo states. We would want to get the door repaired before we would proceed with locks to make sure that the hardware is still functioning. Abby, to discuss your question, regardless of what option we proceed with, if we proceed with an option, I would begin to track who gets keys checked out to them, and then when they are no longer either employees of the township or no longer appointed officials or whatever their association with the township is, if they no longer would need a key, we would make sure we get that back from them. That's also part of when I say an analysis, an operational analysis of this. That will give me a better idea to see who is it actually appropriate to check keys out to. We can do that regardless of if we do non-duplication keys or traditional keys. The challenge being, if they are traditional keys, we have to trust folks that they're not going to have them duplicated.
Because as far as we know, we were good about retrieving keys during all this transition. That, as you said, someone could have copied.
It's my understanding that, yes, the township has done the best they could to keep track of all the keys, but there's not been a formal tracking done, and so I don't think we have any way to be sure, and I think that poses a potential security concern.
To me, the extra cost is worth it. Just my one voice here, just extra security. We have lots of sensitive material out there, and to me, it is worth it just to protect it. And I don't know what kind of warranty or whatever, just going forward, knowing that we're going to have that for how many years to come. We don't have to track down keys. What if somebody loses keys?
Sure.
It poses a lot of, but I'm comfortable with you making that decision.
And I would also like to clarify, none of these options is going completely keyless.
Well, I was going to ask, are any of the touchpad, do they have a backup key aspect, or?
My understanding is it does not.
Okay.
But we have multiple different entrances, so we would be able to get into the building.
It'd still be a key entrance if the electricity's out and.
Correct. And I believe they do have backup batteries, so power outages wouldn't be an issue. I would just like to clarify, none of the options are going completely keyless. We're talking the difference between external and internal doors, and that's another thing to think about with the operations of how our township hall is set up. We have external, which a certain level of folks are able to get in, people who may have meetings back here, and then we have a more restrictive office keys for more internal use, which keeps us out of exactly what you're saying, the more sensitive information.
Still, I worry about lost keys. It's just,
I'm with you.
I'm perfectly happy with deferring to you, and I know you've done the research. Just wanted to bring that up as a concern.
No, I'm sorry. I would love to see one entrance keyless. I mean, totally, and then in terms of break-in, well, I guess that wouldn't matter because you're still going to have doors where you need keys. But, I would like to see one. Yeah, man.
Oh, that's what we're getting into the weeds on this one, but it's important. Do you know offhand with the touchpad ones, is it a situation where each person that's allowed entry has their own code, or would it be one code like in this home security?
I don't know the specifics of the technology.
I'd be curious. It'd be nice to have your own code.
When and who and,
This was at the basic level. We're at the quoting stage.
That's like Mission Impossible.
But
I would like to ask the board for some level of clarification, because in this discussion, which is very helpful for my understanding, we've gone in several different directions. So if the board, I would request if the board could give direction, or if we're not ready to make direction, we can move forward with door repairs and we can bring locks back. We can wait till we have a formal purchasing policy. You all have a lot of options. I would also like to put the reminder that it's my understanding this is an administrative and operational task, but until we
I think we should definitely move ahead with the door.
Yeah, I think the door has to happen.
I mean, I
It
don't
might
think,
take them 2
I'd
months to
call them
schedule.
tomorrow, you know, and then we'll have time maybe to, you know,
Get more data, information on the lot.
because we are doing it until the door is correct.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Usually,
Am
Do
I
we have to
just-
vote on that, or just say,
we have to make a motion on the door,
okay,
Right,
because there is no policy.
right.
So I would entertain a motion on replacing the door only.
I would like to second that.
I just looked for a first.
Oh, well, I'd like to first.
I'd like to clarify, it's repairing the door, not replacing.
Oh, it is, okay.
it's replacing the frame.
Yeah.
The frame.
The S.A. Mormon and Company
As,
proposal as presented
Right.
tonight.
I'd make a motion. Oh, is that the motion? Make a motion that we repair the door from, with S.A. Mormon and Company
As presented.
as presented.
I'll second that.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And with this lock, we want to just take no action?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can get back to us with more of your thoughts and recommendations next month, that'd be great.
Did, Griffin, did they tell you how long it would take for the door, or did they give you any indication of timeline, or?
They did, they estimated it'll take 4 to 6 weeks
Oh,
to
okay,
procure
once
the
we say
materials.
go ahead.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
so let's,
Thank you.
let's call them,
Yeah.
Okay, now we can go to the short-term rental legislation.
well, we sort of touched on that with Representative
Yeah,
Lakeman, right?
I think we,
Right.
she answered our question.
Yeah, but I did just want to, what I was going to ask us to think about and not necessarily vote on today is moving forward. We may at some point, if the legislation, if it stalls and goes away, great. It may not. They're in recess right now in Lansing. Then I would like us to consider formally proposing that legislation, as whether it's a letter or a proclamation to our state senator, our state rep, and the governor, so we can readdress that next month, because it does sound like it might be fading away. But it is tied to, I think, we do want to send a message to the planning commission that we'd like to be more proactive potentially, and are there ordinances like in Casco that we should be looking at? We're getting a lot of calls.
Yeah. Casco has contracted Host Compliance to answer the emergency or urgent calls.
Sorry,
Not free,
if I speak.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
so we're not up to going,
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
we can ask.
But on this topic, we do have an ordinance in place that we took a lot of time, both the township board and the planning commission some time ago, did a lot of, research on, coming up with an ordinance that we thought would be helpful in controlling short-term rentals. One of them is each house or whatever needs to have a fire inspection with a parking plan, so the fire department can get in and out. Also, what we thought would be very helpful, that for many of these places, people were renting their homes and they weren't living in the area, so you couldn't get a hold of them, or if you did get a hold of them, they couldn't respond if there were problems with the renters. So we said you had to have, if you were an out-of-town landlord, that you needed local representation, that neighbors could get a hold of somebody to come and resolve issues that are going on in your rental. And they had to be, I think it's within 45-minute drive. 45 minutes.
I think it's just miles, but, yeah.
Well, either way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, you know, that's,
The problem is, what that is, the neighbor doesn't have that contact
well, they're
number.
supposed to have it. The landlords are supposed to make that information available to the surrounding
Is there a definition of neighbor?
I'm not sure, I don't.
You know,
Because the letter, I think she was like a couple blocks away.
yeah, we drove by
right?
with Lene, I mean, there's 2 houses between her and the B&B, the Airbnb.
Right,
But when there's 12 people and there's noise,
right.
you don't have to live right next door.
Yeah.
And it's a very small, it's not quite a private, it's almost a private street.
Uh-huh.
So again, I think there's 6 houses on the street, so it sounds like they should all have that
And
information.
plus, if they can't get a hold of a local representative, they have to call the police.
Exactly.
You know, they can't, calling the township office.
Oh, no, we tell them that, but, you know, at 2:30 in the morning, they aren't thinking that way, so, necessarily.
For the board's knowledge, township staff is doing our best to address short-term rental concerns as well as other code enforcement concerns. A significant number have been brought to our attention and we've been following up appropriately. We are beginning to document these situations and create paper trails. One of the challenges we found during the recent turnover as situations that have been going on for significant periods of time, those paper trails or documentations were not readily accessible to staff. So we have a lot of situations, especially related to short-term rentals, that become he said, she said, or similar types of situations that do make it difficult to enforce from a staff perspective, but we are following up and finding out how to move forward. I also have a number of sample resolutions and letters from more than half a dozen communities around the state if the board at some time in the future does decide to pursue a resolution or a letter as related to House Bill 4046. I think addressing House Bill 4046 is completely separate from our own township ordinance, which, I do appreciate all the work that the planning commission's done in on that. We have an ordinance that is used by many other communities as an example in the area, and that's something that this township board and the planning commission should be very proud of.
That's pretty cool.
Are you, as far as enforcement, making sure these people's licenses or their permits to rent are up to date and in place?
We're following up with every avenue we can in terms
So when people call and ask that, we check. I mean, I've even handled some of those. Like, oh yeah, they just renewed last year for 3. It's 3 years, I think, that they're good for.
Yeah, but then if there are complaints and they're unresolved, then they can lose that permit. There's
Right, well, that's why it's good we start tracking this.
Yeah, there's things in place that I think before you start thinking about building a new ordinance, let's use the tool we have first.
Yeah.
And if it's not working, then you can look at.
Well, I think a lot of
Trying to
it
change
was
it.
the fire department was not allowed to go, if the occupancy was way over.
Well,
There was that,
That's the number one complaint.
yeah, so now
One of
that's
the
kind of
number
opened
one.
up a little.
How many are they allowed to have? Because they had 14 people there last night, and I thought their permit was for 10. I don't know how you count and enforce that. That's a tough one.
occupancy does tend to seem to be the number one issue that staff is receiving. From an organizational capacity perspective, we are doing the best we can to follow up with these issues, but from the capacity we are as an organization, there are limits to what we can do for each individual concern. But I don't think that has anything to do with how our ordinance is written. Again, the last thing I'm looking to do is speak for this board, but talking about House Bill 4046 and reviewing our ordinance are completely separate issues. I don't
No, I think we're very clear on that.
Okay.
We definitely are clear on that. They're related, but
Well, didn't Mary also say 4046 would not limit
Right.
us
She did.
from
But it was
creating-
not-
But again, it's very vague,
You
and
don't
that,
see that,
you need to have language that kind of outlines
Yeah.
what that means.
Because when I first read it, I thought that it would trump anything that we had. That's just how I read it.
And that's the reading of the Michigan Association of Planning, the Michigan first reading.
I don't either.
Yeah, that's
But-
not how I read it.
It says you can enforce anything that you enforce on other single-family homes.
Right.
And we don't enforce
Right.
fire inspection. So
Yeah.
if we already do it to other people, then we can do it to the Airbnbs or the short-term rentals. But if we
Hold it
don't,
to a higher standard.
yeah, we can't hold them to a higher
Well,
standard.
I hope she's right, but that it's just gonna die in the vine, but, you know. And do other, you probably know this, do other, cities, townships have issues with the enforcement side?
Everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's huge. It's
Yeah,
the
okay.
number one issue,
Yeah.
and that's where I'll
Yeah.
say it again. I think as our ordinance is written, we have a very strong
Yeah.
ordinance. The enforcement of short-term rentals is the difficult part because they tend to be difficult to prove situations, and when it comes from an enforcement standpoint, we have to have evidence or something to act
Right.
on, and phone calls from residents, as valid as they are, and we appreciate hearing from residents about their concerns, they are extremely difficult, if not impossible, for staff to validate and then
Yeah.
therefore be able to take formal action on.
Well, this letter said no pets and no fire pits.
Yeah, that's
no,
it.
I mean, come on.
So
Yeah.
that's why from
Yeah.
currently,
That would be on.
the zoning administrator and myself are trying to encourage voluntary resolution of these conflicts between neighbors and do what we can to mediate those discussions, because if it gets to a point of needing to take formal action as outlined in our ordinance, it is nearly impossible to verify. And that is a common situation for.
And often the neighbor doesn't exist physically in town.
Oh, the owner, you mean?
Well,
Yeah.
and we do
Well,
have,
That's
Or
what
is it
I'm
between
saying.
neighbors, but I mean, the offending party, potentially, or the alleged offending party often isn't like in the house.
But that's why you have that built in, because
That you have to have local representation. So you can call that person at 2:00 in the morning and say, there's something going on here that's not supposed to.
So we need,
You need to be here and fix it.
so we should attempt to track that aspect
Right.
and have that
And make sure the neighbors have that contact information.
That's why I'm just curious about that, was it holds that does the compliance
Holds
in Caston?
compliance.
It might be worth
It's
talking
not
to them.
free.
Well, no,
But,
I wouldn't think so.
You can
When
adjust
you
your
have
fees accordingly.
all the shoreline that we at Casco have, it's gonna continue to be an issue.
Okay. Committee reports.
We're almost there.
Planning commission.
All right. Correct me if I get anything wrong here, Candy. Planning Commission met on July 22nd. Some of the actions taken, we approved adjustments to the medical marijuana ordinance regarding the 500-foot rule from a home to make sure it's measured from the property line, not the physical facility. We approved the new sign up at Dunes Quickview at the BP station. Granted a special use for medical marijuana provisioning center at the formal Amble Inn. And I was at least happy to see that their new plan says they're going to preserve the building as it is and not tear it down. Talked quite extensively about a training plan schedule for members of the Planning Commission. And I think we actually followed through and have some of those scheduled. The goal being that within a 2-year period, all 7 board members have had at least some training, if not even more advanced, as I know you already have. I think we made it clear that the board supports it, the budget supports it, and now we're working with the Planning Commission to put that into action. And, this was just kind of interesting. It was brought up by a member of the commission that perhaps we look into this potential new trend of building tiny homes on properties. It's happening a lot in urban areas, but could be something that happens in rural areas as well. This was brought up because we have an ordinance, we have a square foot minimum on a house, on a piece of property, that these tiny houses would be in violation of. that was kind of interesting. And we apparently are not meeting in in August.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Road Commission.
We've discovered, Griffin and I, recently that it's not so easy to let people know when their roads are being done because the construction company doesn't know exactly when they're gonna go from point A to point B. So, Griffin has been posting them on our website and Facebook, or just Facebook? Yeah, Facebook. So it's been interesting because some of my neighbors came to me because my street was one of the ones that was being done. And so I've learned a lot in that process. We've moved forward with some other things that we're working on. And as you probably already know, right now, the construction companies are on strike. The workers are on strike. So work that we don't know. Have you heard anything? Okay. So anything that's been started right now is kind of in a holding pattern.
Okay. Interurban. I guess I can do that?
Yes.
Director Ice is holding staff meetings on a monthly basis to address staff concerns. The transit has a personnel committee. Members are Marie Wuha and Haru Olin, which an employee would go to besides the director to address concerns. The parking shuttle carried 322 people the weekend before the 4th, 1,347 on the 4th, and 725 the weekend after the 4th. 690 passengers higher than last year. The Wednesday parking shuttle for Music in the Park is averaging 20 riders per week. Submitted by Lori Babinski. Fire Board.
July almost tied the record for July 2017. We reached 115 calls totals as opposed to 116 for 2017. Compared to 2018, we saw an increase of 4.7% in call volume. There were 2 fire calls, a dumpster fire in Douglas and a gas leak fire in the township. EMS counted as 54% of calls, and there were 10 motor vehicle incidents compared to 7 and 8 the previous 2 years. 52 overlapping incidents total, which was a major increase from last year. And the township is the most busy area with 195 calls so far this year, followed by Douglas with 161.
Thank you. Parks Commission.
Since there's not much of an audience, I'll just sit here.
Yep, fine.
The big news is we started the River Bluff project. We met with the contractor. He agreed if we cut down some of the ash trees that are around where the bridge was, they would move them. Dana and I did that on Saturday. I think there were 7 or 8 ash trees we cut down. I went out there today. They got their equipment there. The trail is blocked. Griffin put up the signs. Because that's the only trail down to the river. There's no way to get down to the river. They estimated 2 to 3 weeks and they should be done. So the high ground is still available, but the trail down to the river, 90% of the park is not accessible.
They're not on strike, right?
They're
different kind of
work.
Okay.
And I didn't see any pickets out.
All right.
I don't know about, because I've heard about the middle of the summer, we gotta get these projects done.
Well, one day last week, they started tearing up Potawatomi Pines around the corner on the way to my house. And they had several trucks there and all this going on, and then next day, they're gone, but the road's still been stripped.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you're talking about fire access, they've got the road torn up.
yeah.
Like the time there was that big fire in downtown Douglas, and they had the road torn up. And anyway, the dog park, since we had a wet spring, we had a lot of wet area. Glenn has done maybe 3/4 of the trail in the wooded area, so that's got wood chips on it, and he's trying to improve the drainage there a little bit. So hopefully we don't get complaints about mud, because it was quite wet, June was wet. And the dog park, there's low areas. I don't know if you've been back in the woods, but it's a popular area. People let their dogs in, then they go back there and come out all covered with mud. the trail in halfway decent shape, so.
We'll be going there soon, who knows?
We did do that, so that's a good news for the
No idea how well it's used.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Cattle Lake, Mike is not here, and I don't know what they did. Did you attend?
No, I didn't. Mike's so qualified that I feel he could do it. Yeah.
Okay, open board report. Stacy?
None.
Nothing?
I'm good.
I'm good. Okay, we'll move on to the manager report.
I've got a number of topics I'll run through rather quickly for everyone. If there's any that you would like additional information about, stop me and I can go into more in detail. First, I've been communicating with Housing Next Executive Director Ryan Kilpatrick. He used to work for the city of Douglas as their zoning administrator, I believe, to work with eventually the Planning Commission to look to potentially bring him in as part of the conversation about tiny houses. He's an area expert on alternative and affordable housing strategies, and Lene and I feel that would be a beneficial way to inform that discussion. So I wanted to share that with all of you before bringing it to the rest of the Planning Commission to see if that is something you all would be interested in participating in. If it is, Lene and I can work to schedule a joint session between the Planning Commission and the Township Board. Otherwise, I will reach out to Lene and work with Lene and Andy to see if that's something the Planning Commission would like to get on their agenda at an upcoming meeting. In terms of cemetery contract renewal, this is the first board agenda in several months that cemetery contracts have not been on there. They were taken off temporarily. However, the good news is Douglas approved their cemetery contract at their Monday City Council meeting, so please look for that on the September 4th agenda. There's no update from the city of Saugatuck. We currently do not have an appointed construction board of appeals, which is a requirement to enforce the construction code. So we will be posting applications to get applicants here this week, and please look for appointments on the September 4th agenda. The budget review process has continued, as we talked a little bit about when we addressed some amendments. So I appreciate the board addressing some of those minor amendments that started tonight. Staff is continuing to work in conjunction with the treasurer to work with accounts payable to make sure items are being charged appropriately. We're going to continue to evaluate and amend the budget as necessary moving forward. So please look forward for some goal setting in the future to hopefully inform future budget decisions. As I believe most of you are aware, back in 2002, the Gleason Road, Old Allegan area, there was a water contamination study conducted. Because of that, a number of homeowners in that area were given a one-time opportunity to hook up to municipal water for free. We have had several individuals in that area who recently moved to that area requesting if that still applies. There's limited documentation that we have, but it's my understanding that it does not, and that was a one-time opportunity. Staff will be looking into potentially bringing some policy decisions to you all as a board to clarify that moving forward. We have begun, or we will begin to review and develop a personnel policy and review credit card and investment policies, so look for that on an upcoming agenda. The first township newsletter and announcement was sent out last Friday with this meeting's information as well as packet attached to it. We will continue to evaluate and get better using that process. The goal is to have a quarterly newsletter go out at the end of September. And then lastly, this weekend we received a number of concerns about the trail out by, is it Dizzy Daisy Ice?
Oh, Dairy Daisy.
Dairy Daisy,
Like
excuse me.
that.
The ice cream establishment on Blue Star. Glenn looked at that today, and as a rough estimate, it's looking like it's going to be between $600 and $700 to repair and replace the boards. Staff will look at how that works into the budget moving forward. But those repairs are things to start taking into account, as, at this point, my understanding is they were not anticipated, so that would be an unbudgeted expense that we would need to find room for.
It could come under some budgeted maintenance costs.
Correct.
So we're talking about the roadside park, right, by Dairy Days?
No,
We're talking
no, the
about
bike trail.
the bike trail.
There's like,
I'm sorry, you said trail, and I'm like, what
I'm
trail?
sorry.
I'm thinking like hiking trail, and then I'm
No,
thinking,
it's
well,
the
what's
rotted
the other,
boards
got
on
it.
one of the
Yeah,
bridges.
I got it.
that's part of the,
Right.
And we appreciate residents bringing those concerns to our attention. Currently, until, it's addressed, there are, and I confirmed myself today, there are orange signs on that bike trail identifying, where those boards that are either have holes in them or sticking up are, and staff is gonna evaluate where we can fit repairs to the budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions any of you have.
I have a quick one, the tiny house idea, are you talking about on their own separate pieces of property or on pieces of property that already have a residence?
Sure, so the planning commission, proactively started a discussion about tiny houses at their last meeting. It was just the initial introductory conversation.
Right, okay.
So my understanding is they have not gotten to that point of the discussion. I would like to commend the planning commission, for starting this discussion proactively. I think it's a really good sign of where we're able to go. We're very fortunate to have a number of really qualified, folks on our planning commission, and having these types of discussions is one of the reasons, planning commissions exist. So I am, from a staff perspective, excited to see where these discussions, as well as others in the future, take up.
What prompted the discussion, a resident brought it to the ZBA that he wanted to build a tiny house on his property.
in addition to his house?
Not sure,
Oh, okay.
but.
You know, what, granny pods too are another thing. That's what I want my kids to have.
But, this person wanted to build, you know, a 600 or 700 square foot, home on his lot, and like was said earlier, I believe it's, the minimum right now is 1,200 square feet, on any residential lot. So, they, you know, there wasn't a compelling reason why the zoning board of appeals, could allow that. So Bill Rowe brought it up, you know, to us and said, you know, this is a trend in, you know, like Griffin said, it's starting the initial discussion on, you know, looking at if it's a cluster of them on somebody's lot who's got a couple acres or something, and a cluster of 6 or 8 of these, or, you know, it's just.
What's the maximum allowed? Or
Yeah, it's starting that discussion and looking, you know, as a township, what direction do we want to go?
Yeah, and along with her granny pods, or something I had asked, I had asked Greg about, but he said they have to be attached. So I just trying to, that's why I'm asking, because I think it's a wonderful thing.
If I can jump
Yeah.
in, Brenda, that is exactly the discussion that, Lene and I have had previously, and why we feel it would be beneficial to bring someone like
Right.
Housing Next in,
Yeah.
to not take away from the planning commission's
Right.
discussion, but if anything, to inform that discussion and help, bring in other alternatives, but similar alternative housing options that the planning commission may want to continue to discuss.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's great that Dale was
Yeah, we have a really good ordinance in the city just on that accessory dwelling unit.
Do yours have to be attached? No. See, I know in California or LA, just one county where my daughter is, they just changed it because there's such a housing crisis. So, they did have it so that it had to be attached, now it does not. Anyway, that's all.
Are you at the end of your list?
Yes, unless there's any other questions.
I'm just astounded by how much you've gotten done.
I can't believe you.
My question is,
We're gonna
can
run
you
out of
sleep?
stuff.
I don't think it's wrong.
The trigger thing never.
We gotta
leaves
keep you great job.
Yeah.
First in, last believed.
Yeah.
Public comment?